Good evening all, and welcome. Today I am joined by fellow narrator Creaks and Peaks, with stories from hotels that are sure to give you chills. Just to let you know, we are currently hosting a competition to win the amazing artwork you see on screen now. All you have to do for this is to be subscribed to both channels, hit the bell icon, and leave a like and comment on both videos. You'll be able to find part 2 of our collaboration over on Creaks and Peaks' channel, so be sure to head on over there when this video is over in order to submit your entries. But without further ado, it's time to get comfortable and let the darkness take control. I had recently moved to a new town and had been job hunting. I stopped by a hotel on the shoreline and went in to see if they needed someone for front desk work. Inside was vacant, dark, and smelt stale. The man behind the desk had an extremely thick accent, and it was very difficult for me to understand him. It seemed like he was the only person in the whole building, and I got a strange vibe from the whole place, but stayed to fill out the application and turn it in as quickly as possible. I could feel him staring at me the entire time. The man muttered something underneath his breath, took my application, and I left. After I left, I decided I most likely would not be accepting a position there because of the general strangeness of the situation, and I regretted leaving my phone number and address and other personal information in the hands of that man. Later that evening, I was at home watching the Olympics in my living room. At around 10 or so, I go into my bedroom and grab my phone off the charger, and I see I have a few missed calls from a few minutes ago. It's strange for anyone to be calling me so late, but I redialed the number to satisfy my curiosity. A woman with a thick accent answers and demands to know who's calling. I politely told her I had a missed call from this number, and she starts screaming "no" at the top of her lungs and hangs up. It freaked me out that she had used my name in her crazy talk, but I figured it was some crackhead that misdialed my number. I take my phone with me back into the living room and sit down. Right then, my phone begins ringing again. I answer, and it's the man from the hotel yelling my name over and over. He is screaming at the top of his lungs, and I can hear the woman yelling too. I could catch pieces of what they were saying, but in between their accents and both of them screaming, it was difficult to get it all. I heard, "Disturb my phone, disturb your life, you can't see," and that's about it. I hung up very quickly and proceeded to flip out. They called me back 14 times within about 20 minutes. Thankfully, I didn't have my voicemail set up, so they couldn't leave anything. My husband came home around midnight, and I told him what was happening. He laughed it off and said they were probably on drugs and just dialed my number to mess with me. I really hated the fact that these people had a decent chunk of my personal information, but I figured they were too crazy to do anything but make creepy phone calls at night. I finally calmed down enough to go to sleep at around 3 in the morning. About half an hour later, I woke up to my dog barking, growling, and charging at the back door. I know immediately something is wrong, because she never acts like this and is well trained. My husband and I both sprinted into the living room and saw a hand reaching through the doggy door, clawing at the tile. I screamed, and my husband grabbed me, and we went into the bedroom and locked the door. I dialed the police, and they were thankfully there within 10 minutes. But by this point, the man was long gone. It didn't matter though. I knew exactly who it was. I gave them my statement and showed them my call log from earlier. They called the number, but it was a prepaid phone, so there wasn't a lot they could do to trace it. By the time the police left, it was around 5:30 in the morning, which was okay with me, since I wouldn't be able to sleep regardless. A few hours later, my husband, who was still really pissed off, decided to go to the hotel with me to try and get some information about the guy and inform the staff that this guy was nuts. We spoke to the manager there, and he told us that the man I described had been fired a year ago from stalking a housemaid. What the hell was he doing in the lobby last week then? They checked the security cameras and discovered that he was constantly around the hotel and staring in the windows. I guess he had snuck in whilst the manager left the desk right as I walked in. The manager contacted the police and was able to file trespassing charges against him. Now at least, the police are looking for him. At this point I'm in tears. I had given a crazy person all my information, and he was harassing and stalking me. I'm still receiving phone calls from strange numbers during the night, but luckily, he hasn't returned to the house as far as I know. I contacted my references I had used on my application to let them know of the situation. Apparently, my old boss was left a voicemail at around 2 in the morning on Monday of heavy breathing and perhaps some sex noises. This past week, I haven't been able to sleep at all. I'm a nervous wreck and jump out of my skin every time my phone rings or I hear my dog barking.
So, the best worst hotel I've ever stayed to save $20, by best worst, I mean the all-time worst, is now gone, but onto the experience. It's about 9 or 10 p.m. and we wanted to stay somewhere not too pricey, this being the 90s. That meant less than $70. Found this one place. High-rise ended up being something on a converted apartment building. The rooms were huge. They offered for $50 a night. For 4. Done. First red flag was that the office was separate from the way up the building and the weird layout, like they tried to make more rooms out of it. We went back outside and went back into the stairs and headed up. On the second floor was a huge window duct-taped onto the frame, and on the other side was a stereotypical crack, whore spreading lipstick around her lips. That was the second flag. We were tired and continued to the 4th floor. Getting to the 4th floor, we had to take a left and go out to what seemed to be an outside walkway. Since it looked like an old apartment building, it looked like they halved the apartments to make 2 hotel rooms each and made an outdoor walkway. Anyway, we get to the door and flag 3 was that there was no fucking lock on the door. It was held closed from the outside with a chair. We pulled to the chair and looked inside. 3 rooms plus bathroom. The door had a latch inside and another convenient chair, obviously supposed to be placed under the doorknob. It was marked up by such. We were hungry and ordered pizza. And one went to pick it up. And we explored our temporary squalid adobe for any more atrocities. There was a full fridge filled with mold and mustard, an attic door that led to somewhere dark, and stains in the bathroom, scary, terrible stains. One of us looked in the bedside tables and found nothing of the usual hotel staples, like a phone book, Bible, town tourist book. Just an old dirty business directory. Anyway, pizza comes back, and first thing we hear is, "We need to get the fuck out of here. There are some guys with knives hanging out in the third floor window above the whore display." We recounted the whores of the hotel room. I don't actually remember most of them, just a few, and decide to get the hell out of there. Race down the stairs. Dudes on floor 3 were smoking up now. Floor 2, whore was gone, and floor 1 smelled real bad. Sounded like a few fights or really rough fucking coming from somewhere, and we weren't going to find out any more than that. Get to the office and ask for a refund. No, you went into the room and were there a half hour. Don't care, give a refund. This place should be burned down. You could not pay us to actually stay here. No refunds. We are over 1,000 miles from home. Give us something. Seriously. I'll give you half then. Fuck it. Good enough. Then, rather than go to the opposite direction down the street to the good $75 hotel, we drove until 3 in the morning and stopped at a small town motel for $50 a night that was actually really nice. Did I mention this was a family vacation? I work at a hotel, and while I've seen a lot of weird creepy stuff here, the first thing I saw will always stick with me. It was 3:30 a.m. Being the night auditor, part of my duties is setting up the coffee bar for early departures, so that their day started on the right foot. The coffee bar is to the right of the desk, and about 50 feet from the coffee bar is the breakfast buffet and the kitchen. It's so early that neither of these have staff right now, and it's totally dark over there. First thing I tend to do is go in the cabinets under the breakfast buffet to get the tea box for the coffee bar. The buffet directly faces the kitchen, so that kitchen staff can stock it faster and greet guests. So there I am checking these cabinets when I notice something out of the corner of my eye. I look up into the kitchen and I stopped in my tracks. There's someone back there in the dark, watching me. He's got to be 6.5 feet tall, wearing a heavy olive coat. His torso is dimly lit in the doorway of the employee hallway. He's staring at me as I'm staring at him. And then he lifted both his legs at his knees and floated out the door. I did not click that. I could be looking at a ghost. I took off at a run to search the employee areas for the mischievous guest. I've dealt with a lot of shit like this, and I am not going to tolerate it tonight. I am going to find this fucker and put his ass to the curb. Except I never find anything. No one. Nothing. It takes me several long minutes to admit that it could be a ghost. When it finally clicked with me, I realized how many other weird things I've seen and heard here. Disembodied voices, slamming on the back door when no one's there, footsteps on the 5th floor. Since then, I've also seen 2 other ghosts right here in the lobby. And what I found out is that it never feels crazy at the time. Your brain just refuses to accept that it could be a ghost. It must be a guest who couldn't sleep. Must be. I live in a conservative country that has almost no crime. A few years ago, I had a project in a town about 3 hours away by car and needed to stay there for 5 days. Because my boss did not want to lease a car from me and just use the local taxis, I insisted on staying at the best hotel in town, both for my safety and because it was only a 5-minute car ride to the site of the project. The first 3 days go fine. I leave the hotel early morning, return late at night when work ends, eat a little, and sleep. A lot gets done and I'm happy. On the fourth day, I finish early and decide to go back to the hotel and get a decent meal. 3 days with no real food was starting to physically affect me. Headaches and dizziness aren't fun. It's about 7 in the evening and I decide to sit in the small bar near the lobby. I'm in sweatpants and a shirt. I'm too tired to dress up. It's good enough for the casual bar. Most of the hotel guests were tourists and I fit in. I go in and find a comfy armchair and sit with my book. A minute later, this young bartender comes over and asks what I want to drink. This incident happened before I tried beer, so I picked a little fancy cocktail and a hot meal. He goes away, disappears for 15 minutes, then comes back with a drink. By now, I had realized that besides myself, there's only one occupied table in the bar with 2 elderly people. The bartender starts asking me about myself. Since there were so many tourists around, he asked if I was one. I had answered the same question over a dozen times in the past few days. No biggie. I tell him I am not, and that I am here for work. He seems very nice and eager, but I manage to politely steer the conversation to a dead end, and he leaves. I finally picked up the drink. Didn't taste anything like the way it's supposed to. It wasn't bad though, so I sipped on it for about half an hour while reading and eating the food I desperately needed. Sometime during, I couldn't concentrate on the words in the book anymore. I had to reread the same page more than once before giving up. By now, the cocktail was finished and the bartender was back. He asks if the drink was good. I lie and say it was. I'm too nice, damn it. I ask for another, a much simpler drink this time. Anybody can make this. The drink arrives, and by the time I'm done with half of it, something just feels wrong. I feel weird and can't seem to get my mind to focus. This has never happened before. I need to leave. Now. I ask for the check and he brings it. I pay with cash because my boss doesn't need to know what I do in my spare time. Pick up my wallet, phone, book, and stand up. Holy shit, everything is spinning. I can't stand straight. I take a moment to stabilize myself. I don't want to fall over and create a scene. No way. First couple of steps were very hard. I'm sure I was swaying from side to side. My eyes were so heavy. Once at the busy reception desk, I find the marble design on the floor has a straight line and dark color. My savior. I force myself to stand straight and walk along the line all the way to the elevators. I press the right button then, when at my floor, get out and quickly stumble to my door. I have no idea what's going on, but if I'm going to fall, it will not be in public. I won't be the drunk girl who makes the scene. Inside the room, I realize I'm barely holding onto consciousness. I change my t-shirt, lock the door, turn off the light, and fall into the bed. I was out in less than 5 seconds. Woke up the next day, feeling fine, and finished my work, then traveled 3 hours back home by bus. The incident stayed on my mind. I still had no idea what happened. I was just thankful it ended well, and that I didn't embarrass myself in front of so many people. I wasn't until several months later that I realized I was drugged. Most probably by the bartender. I was the only young person in his height, and I was staying in the hotel alone. I honestly don't remember if he did anything while I was leaving the bar. I've never gone out drinking by myself since, and never ordered another cocktail again. Strictly bottled beer now. I don't trust bartenders anymore.
This happened in the summer, and I believe I was around 12 at the time. I was staying in a hotel in a fairly large city with my mother and younger brother. We were visiting other extended family, but chose not to stay in their house. My brother is younger than me by a decent amount, so I was usually told to keep an eye on him. On the day we arrived, my mum told me to do just that while she checked us in and received our room key. So, my brother and I sat down on a couch in the lobby and relaxed a little bit. While we were sitting, a man in about his mid-40s strolled into the hotel. The couch was facing the hotel doors, so I got a good look at him. I remember that he was very average looking. Describing his features in detail could generate several different images. The guy comes in and sits on the couch opposite ours. I didn't think anything of it until I realized that he didn't go to the counter first. He just came in and sat. It made me feel a little uncomfortable. I thought that he might have followed us in. Thankfully, my mum called us over and told us that our room was ready. We left the lobby and went to our room. Shortly afterwards, we left the hotel to go meet family, and I forgot about the man for the rest of the day. We returned at around 7, and my mother told us that we could go swimming in the hotel pool. We all went to our rooms, changed, and went to the pool. A few minutes after we got into the water, the same man from before walked in and sat down. He was wearing his jeans and a sweater, so he definitely wasn't going swimming. Again, we didn't think much of it, until I could see that my mum was visibly worried. She pointed him out to me, and she said that if he didn't leave within 5 minutes, we needed to go back to our rooms. 5 minutes passed and, of course, he was still there. So we got our things and left. By then it was close to 8 p.m. We had bought a rented movie to watch, so we planned to watch that and go straight to bed. I noticed that my mother was a little on edge because the man was watching us. And I got a little more worried myself too. Halfway through the movie, my mum got up to get in the shower. While she was in there, someone knocked on the door, claiming to be housekeeping in a high-pitched voice. I thought it was weird that the cleaning staff would come this late, but we needed another towel, so I answered the door. I wish I hadn't have been so stupid. It was the creepy man. He gave me a smile and a little wave, and just stood there, kind of motionless. My mind automatically went to the worst possible situation. Kidnapping, rape, torture. I heard the water in the shower turn off, and he stood there for a moment, and then he spoke. "How was your swim?" At that moment, my mum came out of the shower, saw the man at the door, pulled me back, and slammed the door and locked it. She then called the front desk of our hotel to report the guy. I told her to just call the police, but she didn't listen, and she then requested that we switch rooms. I then heard footsteps stomping down the hallway, away from our room. Thankfully, the guy had left. After that, we switched hotel rooms and didn't see him again during our stay. I'm very glad we didn't bump into him after that. Who knows what could have happened.
I stayed in the Copper Queen Hotel in Bisbee, Arizona. It has a number of fairly infamous hauntings. Usually, people report seeing women in 1900s era dresses and minors and a little boy who supposedly drowned in a nearby stream. I was always fascinated with the paranormal growing up, but never really completely believed in ghosts. Even now, my belief is to be determined one way or the other. My mom threw herself into the interest head first as well, but she put a significant amount of trust in the hoax-y TV shows or like Ghost Adventures and whatnot. I was moving out to Arizona for college, and before they dropped me at the dorms for my freshman year, my parents wanted to do an Arizona tour. My mother begged for us to stay at the Copper Queen since it's been the focus of many a ghost haunting show. She downloaded a stupid haunting app that allowed ghosts to see their electromagnetic energy to choose words in the app and speak to you. Obviously, it was a random word generator. The Copper Queen was gorgeous, really well maintained, and antiquated. My mom immediately took my dad by the arm, Ghost app pulled up, and dragged him to the bar lounge area to look for ghosts. I took our bags upstairs and began unpacking. Okay, here's the weirdness. As I unpacked between the two beds, I suddenly felt little tiny footsteps in the floor coming from the other side of my parents' bed. I stopped and listened. Then I heard the footsteps coming closer and felt them stop directly in front of the gap between the two beds where I stood. My heart was racing like crazy and I was frozen in place. I finally gathered up the nerve to ask, whatever it was, "Are you there?" I was embarrassed the moment it came out of my mouth, because it may very well have been a kid out in the hallway. I shit you not, guys. I heard a giggle. Something was giggling right in front of me. It was clear as day, and sounded so close, I thought I could touch the source. Then I stopped, and the little footsteps ran around to the other side of my bed. It giggled and disappeared. I immediately ran out of the room to look around and find a kid somewhere, but it was empty. My parents were just arriving to the room as well. I asked them if they saw any kids running around by the elevators or stairs. They said no. I barely slept that night. I worked housekeeping in a chain hotel. There was one room at the end of the hall where things would happen while you were working on it, and the same two things every time. Sometimes the faucet would start running, not full blast or anything, but turned on enough to be running steadily. I half torn off the knob, I'd say. I'd be in the other room and suddenly hear water gurgling down the drain. Sometimes I'd be working on the tub and hear it on behind me. Whoever, whatever, would also turn on the TV. I'll never forget being warned on my first day that things would happen in the room. And then, while making a bed and rustling the sheets noisily, suddenly aware I was hearing muffled voices and seeing the TV was on. I'm getting chills thinking back on those moments. Whatever part of the room your back was to, it felt like someone was there. I got the feeling they didn't want to be in the way, but they wanted to be there with you. One thing we all felt throughout the stuff: none of us felt threatened. None of us felt like it was a bad person or someone who was trying to frighten us. We all felt overwhelmingly like it was someone trying to reach out, and had limited ways, and was lonely. Sometimes I'd say hello. Sometimes I'd say sorry, because I felt like if they were frustrated, trying to tell me something, I'd want them to know I felt for them. I realize I sound crazy, but it happens super regularly and was witnessed by a lot of people. I thought about whoever it could be. A lot. The hotel has since been bought by a college and was turned into dorms. I hope having people staying in the room more steadily will be a good thing for whoever that spirit was. Maybe they felt less lonely with students actually living there than a revolving door of hotel guests. I used to work at a hotel that was supposedly haunted. A couple had supposedly died in one of the rooms, and that was considered the source of the haunting. So one night, a new houseman, random task errand boy, restock supply closet type position, had to take a shit and will look at the empty room list. The haunted room is not occupied till he goes in there to do his business. He knows the rumors but doesn't realize this is the room. So like 10 minutes later, he finds us and is like, "Real funny, guys. We have no idea what he is talking about." He say, "I could not have smelled that bad. Did you really need to open all the windows and the balcony door?" So according to him, when he got out of the bathroom in the hotel room, all the windows and the sliding door to the balcony were wide open. He says he closed them, so I never got to confirm his story. But me and the front desk clerk were the only people in the whole hotel at that time that had master keys. I know I didn't do it, but we always thought it was hilarious to think that a ghost had to crack a window because of this dude's poop stench.
The hotel I worked at was small, with only 53 rooms in the entire place. It's located next to downtown, in a town in central Minnesota. As a night audit, you worked by yourself, with the shift being from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. You don't get many people checking in the hotel at night, 1 to 3 at most. The first duty as the night audit was to lock the doors so only guests could get in with their key. There was also a phone on the wall next to the main entrance, in case someone arrives after the doors are locked, or somebody orders pizza, what have you. There is a front door in the lobby, a back door in the lobby, and 2 side doors. I proceeded to lock all the doors and head into the back room behind the front desk to do laundry. As there is no staff on hand to do laundry, another task for the night audit is to finish anything remaining that wasn't finished during the day. There is a cordless phone you can bring with you when you go into the back or around the other parts of the hotel. We had no more scheduled check-ins this night, but there were a couple of rooms available. I heard somebody try and open the front door, was unsuccessful, and left. Moments later, I heard the phone rang, and went and answered, and the other person did not speak right away. I walked up to the front desk, and the other person finally began talking. They went on a spiel, saying they were a former cop, and something about having court in the morning, and that if they weren't let in, they were going to come in and shoot me, and that they were circling the hotel. There are windows that look out to the front of the hotel that is visible from the computer I had walked to during the phone call. I told them sorry that we didn't have any rooms available, and they hung up before I could even finish my last sentence. I looked out the window, and there was a person standing across the street, staring back at me with a phone in their hand. At this point, I'm really freaking out, and I go to all the doors to double check that they were locked. It was a good thing I checked, because one of the side doors had been propped open with the doorstop. Obviously, I shut the door and proceeded to go into a conference room with sight of where the person was standing. I kept the lights off and peeked through the blinds, but the person was gone. I was pretty freaked out the rest of the night, because there are windows pretty much everywhere in this hotel, so if this person was watching me, they would be able to all night if they pleased.
My cousin and I were driving to our last stop on a road trip. We passed several smaller broken-down hotels and motels as we drove further away from town. I see the last motel before the woods, and jokingly say it's right up against the woods because that's where they drop the bodies. And then gravely realized that's where our reservation is. I get out to check in while my cousin waits in the car. Everyone stares at us. I walk into the tiny dirty lobby and a man with 2 teeth emerges from his apartment behind the front desk. He is staring at my chest. He is extremely friendly and smiley. He makes strange small talk and tells me I don't look like a fatty patty. I look like a Stephanie and he's going to call me Stephanie. He goes into a back room to check on our keys. After taking a while, he emerges with just 1 key for the 2 of us, 2 small young females. He tells me he gets off at 11 and that he gave us the best room right above his apartment. He's overly friendly and gives off a creep vibe, but I shrug it off. I return to my cousin's Jeep and she looks horrified. She said a man came up to her Jeep, touching it and peeking in until he realized she was still inside. He bolted. I was too nervous to tell her of my awkward encounter and just said the man was a little too friendly. We moved out the Jeep to in front of our room and headed upstairs. Our room was the last one in front of a large deck and next to a ladder leading down to the man's apartment. I think our door looks flimsy, so I ram it with my shoulder before trying the key. It doesn't budge, luckily, so I open it with a key. The handle jiggles and we get inside. We quickly realized that the conjoining room to the room next door is open and has no way to lock. We prop something up against it to keep it closed and unpack. We see scratches down the walls and dents in the walls, signs of a struggle. We also open a long, low cabinet that seems out of place, and the bottom is pushed out from something too heavy. A body? We decide to throw it out because we don't need to be divas and stay in a nice hotel. As I'm in the bathroom, the door has about a ½ inch between the door and the frame where anyone can see through. It's weird, but I deal with it. My cousin calls to me, "Fatty Patty, get out here now." There's something creepier than the scratches in the locked door. I emerge, and she points to the main door, where the dead bolt is busted clean off. There's a latch, but nothing to latch onto. The peephole is also covered by a plastic sheet. This is the room, my cousin says gravely, and we wonder why we only received 1 room key. My cousin wants to leave, but I tell her we have until 11 until the worker shift ends, and we can sit and think on it. Just then, my mom saw some photos I sent her of the room and sends back 2 words, "Leave now." We pack up the Jeep, hearts racing. I walk unsteadily to the man at the desk, but this time he was cold, piercing eyes instead of a smile. "We need to go now. We're checking out," I tell him. He attempts to refuse, to ask why, to change rooms, to tell me I won't be refunded. I tell him that's fine. He asks why, and I lie about a family emergency. He tells me he will need to call backup. A tall, muscular man appears behind us, and we both jump. I guess this is backup. We feel concerned, and my hands are visibly unsteady as I hand over the key. And then, like a miracle, they both stepped out to the back room for a minute. My cousin and I literally ran to the car and spit the fuck out of that parking lot, never turning back. We stayed in a highly populated Marriott that night, and they took excellent care of us after hearing of our near-death experience. Years ago, I stayed for some nights at a hotel in the New Forest, which is a national park on the south coast of England. The hotel was a large former hunting lodge, built sometime in the 19th century. I felt very uncomfortable in my room, and almost as though there were others there with me, or someone watching me. I am not the kind of person that is normally given to such feelings, but they were very strong and extremely uncomfortable. I was with a large group staying there, and speaking to others after the first night. Many felt the same. That first night, it took me a long time to fall asleep, and for the first time in my entire adult life, I could not bring myself to turn out the lights before I went to bed. When I eventually fell asleep, I had the most vivid dreams that felt extremely real, of being in a trench somewhere during the Great War and hearing the constant banging of explosions and of artillery pieces firing. I woke up feeling extremely distressed and with a cold sweat. There was a banging noise, which I assume must have been some metal roofing, not affixed properly, moving in the wind. I've never felt anything like it since, and had never felt anything like it before. It felt so very real, and I was completely overwhelmed with so many emotions and utterly terrified. I could not get back to sleep. I felt like I was in the company of others. I felt like someone was near, or that feeling you get when you know people are looking at you. And I spent the rest of the night in a kind of daze. In the morning, I went downstairs for breakfast and saw a frame on the wall containing some photographs and a story about how the hotel was converted to a military hospital during World War I. I did not know anything about this before I arrived and before that night. I had also not been reading anything about the war, or had seen anything on television recently about it. I'm a practical and skeptical woman, but I don't know what to make of that experience. I spent the remainder of the stay with one of my friends in another room. The oppressive atmosphere and general feeling of something wrong and frightening to me did not lift, and my friend I stayed with was also afraid and was glad of me to stay with them in their room. A few years back, I had to stay in a hotel for 2 weeks on a training course. I arrived on the Monday after the first day's training and checked in. Went to my room, and I can honestly say that it was the largest bedroom I had ever stayed in. The bed was a super king. There was a big bathroom. I was pleasantly surprised, because as a business customer, you normally get a shitty little room. Had a long soak in the tub, ordered room service, and watched some TV. It got to around 9, so I switched the TV over to radio and went to use the bathroom before bed. When I came back, something just seemed off. I just felt like there was someone else in the room, just watching me. I got into bed, started to read, but couldn't shake the feeling. Quite frankly, I felt afraid. I must have slept for a couple of hours tops, and I kept the lamp on all night. Come daylight, I brushed it off as nerves and went about my business. But that night, it was just the same. Just that feeling that I was being watched. The following morning, I asked to be moved, but the hotel was fully booked until Friday. Every night was the same, just that creepy feeling when the hair stand up on the back of your neck. I went home for the weekend and came back again on Monday. I asked for the smallest room they had. I was given a smaller, different room. Luckily, whatever I felt was watching me disappeared. I looked into the history of the hotel after and found it was reputedly haunted by a maid, predictably. It had also been used recently for a celebrity laying in state, of all things. I really can't say whether it is haunted or not, but I have stayed in a fair number of hotels, for both business and leisure, and I have never experienced anything like that. The thought of it still gives me the creeps.
The night of my sister's wedding, the hotel realized that they were overbooked, and my boyfriend and I suddenly found ourselves needing to find another hotel room at almost 11 p.m. on a Saturday night. We drove around what seemed like forever in the town we were in, and finally found a vacancy at a Super 8 hotel. It wasn't in the best neighborhood, but the rooms were clean enough. My boyfriend had way too much to drink at the wedding, and passed out cold as soon as we got him back to the room. Back then, I used to smoke a little, and had bought some and proceeded to watch TV and smoke a little pot. At around 12:30 a.m, all of a sudden there was a huge bang on the hotel door. I literally almost fell out of the bed. It scared me so badly. Someone was on the other side of the door banging, like with the door shaking. My heart was stopping at the bang on the door. I should also mention that these hotels had the entryway set up on the outside of the hotel, so whoever it was did not have to come into the hotel. They could have just walked up from the street. I tried to wake up my drunk boyfriend, but could not get him to wake up, no matter what I did. I still to this day do not understand how all this ruckus did not make him stir. This super loud banging on the door continued relentlessly, and all of a sudden, the man on the other side of the door began screaming and yelling through the door in another language. Something with an island accent, I believe, perhaps Creole, and wailing at the top of his lungs. The wailing was legit the most scary, haunting sound I've ever heard. I can't even begin to describe the sound of his wailing, other than it was one of the most gut-wrenching sounds I've ever heard. I was too terrified to walk up to the window and look out, and scared to call the police because of the pot smoke in the room. I tried to call the front desk, but the phone just rang and rang, and this continued for 30 minutes. The whole time, with the loud banging, wailing, and foreign words being yelled in an angry voice. I thought he was going to kick in the door, or break the window because he was going into a frenzy out there. I was so terrified that I went into the opposite corner of the room and just sat in the corner crying until it finally stopped. No one from any rooms besides us ever came out or anything, so maybe they were all vacant. I have no idea, but it seemed like this lasted forever. When it stopped, I heard the man go down the outside stairs, so I know he left. Still, I did not sleep at all that night. When my boyfriend finally awoke, I told him about the scary wailing man, and we left as soon as he woke up. When I checked out of the hotel, I asked the lady at the front desk had there been some incident or anything reported by anyone, and she said no. I have never been so happy to leave a hotel in my life.
About 22 years ago, my then girlfriend and I were in a nowhere in particular to go road trip. I think we were somewhere in Nebraska. It was one of those states that seems to be about 90% corn. We stopped somewhere for the night at this little podunk hotel that had only 5 or 6 rooms available because we were tired and needed to stop. We had been driving for almost 2 days, switching back and forth, mostly not stopping. It was late when we went in, and my girlfriend started walking towards the reception room. She stopped and called out for me to come with her. I was looking around at the sketchy fold-down place. There's a dude at the desk inside, and he's huge, terrifyingly so. I am not slouch in the big guy department either. This guy towered over me about 10 or 12 inches, which would have made him at least 7 feet tall, and probably had 100 or 150 pounds on me, and he looked like he was extruded from some sort of tree. So we walk in and ask for a room. The guy smiles, nods, writes some things on the desk, takes my cash, hands us a key. There are TVs on the desk, 4 or 5 of them, like stereotypical CCTV displays from the 80s. I look down and notice only one screen, because it is pornographic. More in this. The guy is wearing jogging pants and clearly has an erection. I take the key and we go outside. Girlfriend is short and didn't see over the desk, so didn't see the porn. The porn was weird. I think it was of questionable legality. There were a number of youngish women who looked about mid-teen in years, working out in a gymnasium nude. They were vaguely robotic looking, as if they were acting badly. I took in only about 8 to 10 seconds of the porn, but the images have stuck with me over the years. We were both very, very creeped out when we discussed this in our room. I leaned our very large suitcases up against the door and put a vase on the suitcases so that if the door were open, the vase would fall. I also rigged the windows with some plastic cups so that if the windows opened, the cups would squish and make some noise. Girlfriend and I both showered. Then we conked out on the bed about 11:45. 3:30 a.m. I wake up. I am groggy, don't really know what is happening, just feel weird. I decide to go grab a drink and get some ice from the foyer. Big dude is not around. I decide to look over at the CCTVs on the desk, see what's what, because they're still on. The one screen still has the same porn. One screen is showing surveillance from the parking lot. One screen is showing surveillance from inside our room. Girlfriend is fast asleep on the bed. I leave, go pack up the car quick, pick up girlfriend and put her in the car, still asleep, and get the fuck out of there. There are a couple of things that have always stuck with me that still give me the creeps when I think about it. The guy, he was so big and solid looking. He never actually said any words as far as I can remember. He just looked beatific the whole time. The porn was so weird, non-sexual, just vaguely underages looking girl on exercise bikes and lifting barbells. Looking at the camera and realizing that someone had watched us fucking sleep. If we hadn't been so crazy tired from all the driving, it would have been more. I am the night auditor, so you know, I see the truly crazy things. Even though this is a nice hotel in a nice town, my very first night at this job, a guest was arrested and escorted out. Once, a guest literally made a rope out of his seats and climbed out the window from the 3rd floor like from a movie, rather than pay for his stay. But we all have stories like that. This is my unique story. This is the tale of the ghost lady. So my first meeting with her was maybe 2 in the morning, which is really when things are properly dead and I am not going to see any more for the night. So I am fully surprised when I turn around and an old lady is standing in front of the snack shop holding a can of soup and staring at me. She snuffles over and asks me how much the soup is. The things that I notice that stick out of place, at least to me, are that she isn't wearing any shoes. that she is wearing a winter coat in summer over a nightgown, and that our snack shop doesn't sell that brand of soup. But it's fine, no big deal. I bring her a can opener. I even open the can for her, might as well, since she began to immediately open it at the desk anyway. And when she headed for the microwave, I even headed her off with a bowl, so the whole thing would not explode after stuffing a can of soup into it. I sent her off thinking I have a slightly interesting tale to tell the morning shift. Nothing more. Certainly nothing to bother this fine subreddit with. 6 a.m. the police arrived. Other night auditors will probably tell you that at night the world gets a lot smaller. 90% of people around you are asleep, so it is very common to get to know those few people you interact with. I knew the girl who always delivers pizza late at night. I knew the guy who works at the gas station down the street, who I sometimes sneak away to get an ice cream. You get used to seeing the same people on the same shift. That's why Officer Don, not his real name, greets me at the front desk. That's why I know something is wrong when I see the look on his face, as if someone at the DMV just told you a form was wrong and you had to start the process over again. It is also why I knew something was right when his partner was leaning against the door with a huge smile on his face. "Hey, do you have some sort of ghost problem?" "What?" Has a guest complained about a checks notes spectral apparition entering her room? I am just staring at him. I want to say I am smart enough that this clicked for me right away, but honestly, Soup Lady was hours ago and she wasn't even on my mind. At least until she came from down the hall again, without shoes, and proclaimed it was about time they showed up, and that she had trapped the ghost in the closet. So giving the poor officer a shrug, I had no idea she had a problem. I watch as Officer Dawn puts on his most polite smile and follows her to her room. His partner, by the way, doesn't go with him. He just stands by the door quietly with that huge grin still on his face. Clearly, this was a you get the next one kind of deal. After about 20 minutes, the officer comes back and says to try to discourage her from calling the police again, and they leave. Ghost Lady, formerly known as Soup Lady, shows up and asks if she can move rooms to get away from the ghost. I move her because I can already see what my night will turn into if I don't. I told this to the morning shift and to watch out from her, but luckily, when I come in the next night, they say she has been completely quiet. End of story? Nope. The police arrived the next night. Roles reversed. I spy Officer Dawn smiling from the car as his partner comes through the door. Almost the exact situation repeats itself, down to the moving a Ghost Lady to a different room. Third night. Both officers come in now. Neither look too happy this time, and they have a trash bag. They just ask me what room she is in. I tell them, and they are moving before I can even offer to come with them. About 15 minutes, they come back. Ghost Lady shuffling behind them, both of them struggling with the empty trash bag now filled with air. Dawn looks at me as they pass by and says, "Don't worry, we got him this time." And they are about the door without even slowing down. Ghost Lady, finally I can sleep tonight.
Hey guys, it's Mort here, and thank you so much for listening. Now that you've finished the video, remember to hit the bell icon, subscribe, And drop a like and a comment on my video and Creaks and Peaks' video for a chance to win this amazing artwork. Are you ready for part 2? With even more horrifying stories? I hope so. Hit the link on screen now to follow us over. I'll see you there.